Welcome to UMass Amherst. This is one of the first sessions of the morning, so we always like to bring a little energy to that. So we're so glad you're here today and visiting, and so glad that so many of you chose to sit toward the back, so we'll try and keep our voices nice and loud. My name is Mike Drish. I'm the director of first year admissions here at UMass, so I'm especially happy to see so many of you here today, in addition to the thousands of other families and visitors that are here in other sessions and doing other things. So glad that you chose this session because I think you'll get a lot out of what we're going to talk about today. So what we're going to do is I'm going to kick things off just by introducing the concept of being undecided or undeclared, helping maybe you all feel a little comfortable, and by you all usually parents and family members, help you feel comfortable with what undecided or undeclared means, especially here at UMass Amherst. And then I'll be joined on this stage by a panel of experts because there's only so much you want to hear about from me. And those will include two of our academic advisors from two different schools and colleges here at UMass, and three of our current students who started undecided, and believe it or not, they found exactly what they love. They're enjoying that experience, and everything's going really well, because that's ultimately what happens, is if you enter UMass or most universities undecided or undeclared, everything will work out just fine. There's a lot of hesitation, sometimes anxiety around that. Hopefully the goal today is 45 minutes from now, you'll feel even better about the possible choices in front of you. So, in terms of getting started, there is a little bit of, I like to kind of switch it up. So the slides have some questions and things like that, so hopefully it'll keep you engaged. But students, what is one of the most common questions people are asking you about college? When they say, oh, you're a junior, or you're a senior, or you're looking at college, what do they usually ask you? Do you know what you want to be when you grow up? Do you know what you want to major in? Is it all these big questions that sometimes that person asking the question, I don't think means to cause a lot of stress and anxiety. And this is good preface because we all know we have some holidays on the horizon, and so you're going to see a lot of family, and the questions are probably going to come up again. But usually this best of intention question becomes something that you dread, or something that your answer, I'm not sure yet, doesn't usually exude or get a response where it's like, oh, good, or wow, that's a great thing. It's usually like, oh, or like, well, what do you mean? And so, again, these inadvertent responses to questions as a part of the college search process it's not what people, I think, are trying to do, but it can cause some anxiety. And so one of the things that, again, hopefully today as you explore and you get a sense of what undecided is like, it might actually help you with some answers to that well-intentioned aunt or uncle or cousin or neighbor who's asking, and suddenly you feel like you've gotten cornered. So yes, one of the most common questions is, what are you going to major in? And somehow, I'm not sure, isn't the answer people are always looking for, even though they should be a little more accommodating with that. Another question, so as you start exploring, so this is back on kind of your questions you may have, one of your questions could be, can I enter college without declaring a major? Yes, you can. That is possible. I think it's really important to underscore that. We'll talk a little bit more about this, but it's absolutely possible. It's something that I think most students who admit they're not really sure what they want to do are probably the most honest with themselves. Because as you've seen with the stat, the average college student changes their mind depending on institutions 3 or 4 times. So those of you in this room today are probably the most honest people of everyone visiting today. Another common question that usually comes with being undecided that you might start to ask yourself is, will I be behind if I enter undecided? Will I delay my time to graduate? Will I be adding more time to college? Will I be spending more money? Sometimes that's mom or dad's thought. Is this going to cost me more because they're going to be at that place longer because they're undecided? No, it will not. Again, here at UMass and at most places, you can enter undecided or undeclared, and you'll still graduate in 4 years. The curriculum is built to support that, and you'll hear more about that from our advisors and from our students who are on track. And the reason that that exists, and this is the big secret that I think most of you already know the answer to, lots of students don't know what they want to major in, and that's perfectly okay. Colleges and universities, from liberal arts colleges to large public research universities, are built to support you in that journey. This isn't something on the fringe, this isn't something that you're just kind of off on the side doing. This is a part of your educational journey, and we're there to support you in that effort. And the one thing you'll learn, for better or worse, colleges and universities love to use different terms for what should be kind of standard terms. So of course here at UMass, we don't really refer to it as undecided or undeclared. We call it exploratory tracks. And so you'll find in different places, this is something professors love to do. They love to call things different names. So if you start to look at different universities, don't give up your search. If you use one term, you may have to use a few terms. You have to ask that admissions officer for that university, what is undecided called at your university? Because higher ed loves different terms. And so you'll find this throughout the day. What offices are called here? They could be something completely different at UConn, and they could be something completely different at NYU, but they all offer the same resources, the same great opportunities. We just like to call them something different. So at UMass, it's called Exploratory Tracks. And one of the reasons we do that is because exploring ultimately is all about discovery. If you've ever done, this is fascinating to me because I love Google image searching, and when you type in the word discovery, these are the images that come up, and versus some other words you think about like lost or confused or uncertain, the Google images are very different, but this gives you an idea of why we go with exploring or discovery. It's much more positive, much more kind of forward thinking, these beautiful vistas and things like that. So key things, as an undecided student, that's a positive. That's the key takeaway. Look at these images. That, I mean, in the sense of on a basic level, you should be excited about that. It should be something that doesn't cause stress and anxiety, but makes you feel that, wow, the opportunities are extensive. What I'm going to be able to kind of explore and discover is going to set me up for great success. So too often, with the college search process and kind of getting to know universities, there can be a little bit more, sometimes we don't always operate from that mindset. It's like, well, is this good? Will this work? Kind of from this negative or kind of questioning perspective, which is good, but I think there's a lot of positives that hopefully your mind quickly jumps to. And one of the reasons we think it's a positive here at UMass is the fact that usually in any given year, 15 to 20% of our incoming class of over 5,000 students have admitted that they're undecided, and they enter one of our exploratory tracks. So again, like I said, that's not a small number. That's a significant number of students here at UMass. It varies year to year because just as all of you know, your senior class, if you're a senior, is very different from the junior class in your high school, which is very different from the 9th grade class. Those students all go about their college search and interests in very different ways. So the number here at UMass does fluctuate because every incoming class is a little different. You see that play out in your high schools. So here at UMass, we have, as I mentioned, these exploratory tracks. So the exploratory tracks, there are 6 of them. 5 of them are in our schools and colleges. So as you see on the screen behind me, the 5 maroon areas are the exploratory tracks that exist in schools and colleges at UMass. So not every school or college has an exploratory track. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then there's a 6th and newest exploratory track called interdisciplinary. And ET, interdisciplinary, is for students who are considering creating their own major at UMass. We have a program, and we'll get to this in a few minutes, called BDIC. It's called Bachelor's Degree in Individual Concentration. It's essentially build your own major. And this year, the university has created an interdisciplinary exploratory track so students can enter into something and then start to build their own major. And so that's what that exploratory track is. It's on the application. I'll show you in a minute what all of this looks like. But essentially, it's if you want to explore different fields to bring together to create your own major, that's what the exploratory track and interdisciplinary is for. For the 5 in the schools and colleges, you enter any of those, and we'll talk about a few limits in a minute, but you can switch from those into majors in those schools and colleges, into other schools and colleges. The reason UMass has schools and colleges is just to build smaller academic communities in a campus of 23,000 undergraduates. So it might not make perfect sense to you why everything falls where it does, but the goal is to build smaller academic communities. That's why we have exploratory tracks within those communities But as you'll hear from your advisors, you have incredible individuals who are helping you find your path even beyond the school and college where that track may be. Then, something else that can happen is we have 2 invitation-only exploratory tracks. So these are not on the application. You could apply to UMass to a certain major, you could be admitted to that major, or you could be invited or admitted to the exploratory track in our College of Computing and Informatics, or you could be invited to the exploratory track in the School of Management, the Eisenberg School of Management. Those are invite only, you cannot apply into those. Those are decisions that are made in the review process in consultation with those schools and colleges. But those 2 do not have an exploratory track that you can apply to, but know that it could be an option in terms of your offer of admission. Then you would start in those schools or colleges, and just like all the others, you could switch into a major, you could switch out of those schools or colleges into one of the other ones, so you have a lot of flexibility there. So, I mentioned that here at UMass we call Undecided exploratory tracks. Here on campus, we all know what that means. But we know when you're filling out the application, not everyone comes to a fall visit day. Obviously, the thousands of people here at fall visit day aren't in this session. And so we know that it's not common vernacular. So, on the Common App, we list them under Undecided, because that's a term that most of you look for or would be thinking about on the application. So, this is a screenshot of the Common App. And as you can see, what is your intended major at UMass? Under U are all of the undecided tracks, or the exploratory tracks. So that's where you would select one of the options that we're highlighting today on your application, just so that when you go home, you don't look for this under E, because you'll all remember what we call it here, but just wanted that to be clear, so that's important. And then, on our application, in the UMass questions, there is a section where you are expected to tell us why you chose the major or majors that you did. You have 100 words, so this is not an essay. There should not be introductions, conclusions, there should be no quotes, nothing like that. Don't have your English teacher read your answer to this. That's not the goal. The goal here is content. And when it comes to content, in 100 words, if you're undecided, do not be ashamed of that. Do not think that's something that we don't want to read about. We absolutely want to hear, why are you undecided? How are you thinking about exploring at UMass? It's 100 words, but what are you thinking about pursuing? Give us a lens into that so you demonstrate to us, I know what UMass offers me as an undecided student. I have an idea of what I'm considering. We're not going to hold you to that, but think about how in admissions, our goal is to try and get to know you better in the application review process. These sorts of questions give us a great lens into your thinking, your mindset, how you're approaching things. The more you share, the more personal and insightful you are, the better your chance of admission. And so we want to understand why you're undecided. Give us a lens into what research you've done about UMass so that you know what might be available to you here. This question and the why UMass question in the application are critically important questions. And they're on our section, which sometimes students really focus on the Common App, and then they get to the member questions. The member questions are usually the ones from UMass or any other campus we really care about. So make sure you spend some time and effort, but especially if you're undecided, that's exactly what we want to hear about. So talk about that, and it will be a benefit to you in the process. So again, back to the positives. If you can't tell, I'm a bit of an optimist, so that's where my mindset comes from. There are absolutely benefits and advantages to being undecided. And if you, like I said, I'm going to highlight these, but they're going to be underscored by our students and our staff members. First and foremost, you have a significant amount of support for your major decision here at UMass. So the goal is to channel your interests toward your UMass degree options. And you engage with an academic advisor. They know UMass inside and out, and they put that knowledge to work for you. And as I mentioned, we have 2 great advisors here today who I think you'll see that firsthand in the answers they have to your questions. The other benefit of UMass is our size. over 100 majors to choose from, 60 minor fields of study once you discover a major of interest. You have a significant amount of ways you could major, double major. A significant number of students here double major. Being undecided does not preclude you from doing that. And then those minor fields of study are very, very doable as well. So you have a wide range of choice. And like I said, we'll even talk about how you could build your own major in a minute. And you have that time and space to explore. We have something here called first year seminars, which again, I'm just trying to kind of get you thinking about things you want to know, and then others, the students and staff who have more knowledge about this and their experience that can talk about it. But it's a chance to explore fields of interest. First year seminars with small classes available to first year students. And again, being undecided allows you to explore and actually get to know a lot of fields that as high school students, as much as you like to think that you know what an engineer is, what pre-med is, what psychology is, just because Hollywood thinks that's what it might be, or a TV channel thinks it's what it might be, believe it or not, it's very different. And being on the ground here gives you a great chance to explore, get to know these different majors, and you'll be really surprised how different it may be, or from what you thought it was to what it actually could be. I have one anecdote. I used to work at a university that offered pharmacy, and there was always students who would come and tell me they want to be a pharmacist because everything you see at Walgreens makes that job look so easy. And I would tell them that, well, first year you have to take organic chemistry. I don't want to be a pharmacist. And so it's like what people see or think, it's like you just move pills around from the bags and you put them in a thing, that's got to be an easy job. It's like, no, that's not what it is at all. But I think there's that impression we have of all these fields out there, like, oh, what does this mean? As an exploratory student, you actually get to take classes, talk with advisors, meet other students, and get a sense of what the experience is actually like. That's a great benefit to you. Now that said, as I mentioned, I'm an optimist, I'm also a realist. I want to make sure that you know everything going into this. There are a few colleges or majors that are not accessible to undeclared or any undergraduates at UMass who are not first-year students in these majors. So our nursing college, incredible opportunity, however, it's small. 70 students in an entering class. If you want to be a nurse at UMass, you have to apply as a first-year student. No one can switch into nursing once they're here, including our undecided or undeclared students. So that's something to keep in mind. Then, the Eisenberg School of Management has the following majors that you cannot switch into once you come to UMass. So if you want to major in anything like accounting, finance, management, marketing, or operations and information management, you need to apply as a first-year student and gain admission into those majors. Eisenberg has become our second largest college at UMass. The demand is high, the amount of space is limited, and so they just can't accommodate the number of students who would want to switch into Eisenberg who come to UMass. That said, we definitely can talk to you and think about questions if you want to know more about other business-related majors at UMass, because there are a lot. And Kelly, one of our advisors here today, represents one of our colleges that has incredible resources to you. So keep that in mind. So a few limitations. I mentioned 100 plus majors. What's listed up here, like 7? So that gives 93 or so do not have those limitations. So for the most part, students have a lot of flexibility, a lot of ability to switch and change majors, but there are a few limitations we want to point out. And then, as I mentioned, I gave a little teaser earlier, but there's the opportunity to create your own major here at UMass. It's called BDIC, a bachelor's degree with individual concentration. Basically, you can choose, you work with a professor, you work with faculty to craft this major. It has to include courses from 3 different fields or disciplines. You work with faculty to craft that major. It could be a Bachelor of Arts or a Bachelor of Science. You enter in the Exploratory Track of Interdisciplinary, or you enter a different major at UMass, and you apply to the BDIC proposal course. And that could be as early as the second semester of your first year. And then you will declare a major after your proposal is approved by the faculty. And it could be your primary major, or you could be in another major, take the BDIC course, and add that as a second major that you've created. If you come in ET interdisciplinary, Obviously, you either have to do BDIC or you have to switch to another major. No one here can graduate in an exploratory track, so you would have to switch if you come into an exploratory track. But if you do know one area of interest, you could major in that, then always add BDIC as a second choice. Like I mentioned, BDIC is not on the application for admission list of majors. You can't enter that as a first-year student, but the undecided interdisciplinary option would be one available way to do that. So, you've heard enough from me. Hopefully that's been some helpful insight to set the context. If I could have our panelists join me on stage, what we're going to do, and then we'll take questions after I have them introduce themselves, so you're on the right track. I'm going to have them introduce themselves, so you guys can come on up. And we have a few microphones, and they'll do some introductions, and then they will, and then we'll take questions from the audience. I have a few quick questions after the introductions, but then they'll take questions from the audience, so get your questions ready.
Okay, I think this is on. Good morning, everyone. My name is Torrin Moore. I am an Exploratory Track advisor, student success advisor in the School of Public Health and Health Sciences here at UMass. I'm also a two-time alum of the institution.
Hi everybody, my name is Kelly Gray and I work in the College of Social and Behavioral Sciences. I'm one of the assistant deans, but I also work very close with our exploratory track.
Hi everyone, my name is Fayo. I'm a junior here at UMass. I'm a double major in marketing and communications with a minor in psychology. And I'm an international student as I live and I'm from Nigeria. I'm going to talk about what I do on campus. I'm a tour guide, which is why I'm here with you today. I'm also an admissions diversity fellow. I'm a TA in Isenberg. I'm a peer advisor in Isenberg. I work as a peer mentor in one of my halls, and I have a couple of jobs on campus. I work with Apple as an Apple campus leader. I work as I'm the PR of one of my clubs, and I am a writer for my book club here at campus.
All right, hello everyone. So my name's Tommy. I am a psychology and sociology double major. I'm a senior, so sad I know. I'm also an education minor as well, so I have a lot going on there. But in addition, I'm a tour guide as well. I'm in a research lab on campus, in a social psych lab. I've also been a part of a peer mentoring program. So.
All right, hi, my name is Ella. I am also a senior, and I'm an out-of-state student. I'm from Seattle, Washington. I am a journalism major and a double minor in political science and sustainable community development. I'm also a member of the Commonwealth Honors College, and I'm also a tour guide. I'm also a tour guide, but I also am the secretary of UMass Women's Club Volleyball, which is one of our club sports here on campus. And I am also the head news editor for the Massachusetts Daily Collegian, which is UMass's student-run newspaper.
So one question you may have all had are there things to do at UMass? Hopefully our students have answered that question. Yes, there's just a few things that they're involved in, which always makes me feel great and exhausted at the same time. So I'm always impressed by your energy. So one, thank you for the introductions. Torrin and Kelly, could you talk a little bit, just to kind of get the ball rolling, about advising undecided students who come in, kind of, especially now we're in the fall semester, we've had a group that just came in. Kind of talk a little bit about how you approach that, how, kind of the mindset, just what would be helpful for this group to hear about?
Yeah, I could talk about this for a long time, but I'll try to keep it really brief. So it really starts over the summer with new student advising, really asking that question of, yes, I know you're undecided, but what is it you liked in high school? What did you not like? What are you interested in? Do you have any types of careers that you're thinking about in the back of your mind or not thinking about? And we work to pick classes that make sense from a perspective of, yes, you're exploring some new things, but you're also working on your gen ed requirements. To come back to what Mike said, you will graduate in time. And unless, I mean, of course, there's always people down the road that divert in some ways, but I would say the vast majority of students that come in exploratory track graduate in time, because during that year you're exploring, you're still making progress towards your degree. So I could say a lot more, but I'll pass it to Torrin to see if he wants to add.
Absolutely. So I think probably the biggest thing I like to say to my students, because I have a nice cohort of them every year, is first of all, just congratulations, you're here, and we really are going to explore together what it is you're interested in, so that we can make sure that we have all of your kind of key questions answered. And also really to think about what are some of the other things in your life? So I really like to engage my students. I'm trying to get to know the entire student so that I can really get a holistic sense of who you are. In addition to being an advisor, I'm also a first-year seminar instructor. So I do instruction with exploratory track students. And in that course, not only are we talking about how you explore, but we're also talking about how do you balance all of this stuff? Because you're just coming out of a high school situation, you're coming into a place where you're expected to have kind of more adult-like responsibilities. So how are you managing your time? How are you managing your finances? How are you taking care of yourself? Are you getting enough sleep? Who are the resources around campus that you can check in with and talk to, from everything from academics to all different parts of yourself as a human? So I really want to make sure that our students not only are thinking about what the major is and what they want to do, but also how they're taking care of their whole selves while they're doing it.
Thank you. Theo, Tommy, Ella, could you talk a little bit about what led you to choose one of the exploratory tracks on the application, and maybe just a little bit about how that piece and the transition to actually identifying a major?
Okay, so actually part of the reason that I chose UMass was because of the exploratory programs. I had zero idea what I wanted to do when I was applying to colleges. I legit no idea. I'd always loved English, so I figured that I would start out in the humanities and fine arts exploratory track. So I spent the entire first year. Part of what's great about the exploratory track, and what I loved about it, is that I could take classes in every school or college. I took natural science classes, I took social behavioral classes, I also took fine arts classes, and so like exploring is like legit. It's actually, you get to kind of head to any kind of class that you want. I'm now in the College of Social Behavioral Sciences, so I was able to make that transition and find journalism, and it was because of my exploratory advisor. We kind of like honed in on things that I had traditionally liked in the past. You know, I was gonna go down the philosophy route for a second, but I took a philosophy class, and that was really difficult. So I was like, maybe not. And then second semester, I decided to enroll in journalism class, just an intro, and I loved it, and that's all thanks to the advising and also just thanks to the huge amount of flexibility. Because UMass is so big, that means that we have so many options of classes that we get to take, and that was really like what kind of led me to what I ended up choosing and really loving.
So I stumbled across the exploratory track on the College of Natural Science as a complete coincidence. In fact, when I came here, I then discovered that I was in the College of Natural Science. So I'm definitely not a prime example here, but weirdly enough, I ended up staying in college. And that was really because, like what they were saying earlier, I really want to reiterate that you're exploring, but you're also getting your gen ed requirements. So I had tons of different requirements I needed to do. So I took communication courses, I took anthropology courses, and I stumbled across psychology, which I really liked. So in addition to exploring my interests, I was also, taking my gen ed courses too. So definitely don't think everything goes to a credit that goes to your graduation, but gen ed requirements really help you out, and especially with the exploring process. So that's kind of how I came across psychology.
I think for me it was fairly different. So as Mike mentioned, for Eisenberg, you can't apply into exploratory track, they invite you. So how it works is you actually apply into Eisenberg as a major. So I applied to Eisenberg as a marketing major, but they sort of say, I like to describe it as Eisenberg sees your application and you're like, you know what, we know you want to be a marketing major, but we want to give you some time to explore. Like, we want to give you a year to figure it out. So when I applied to Eisenberg, I got in, but at the end of my application, I was looking for what major they took me in as, and then I saw exploratory and I was very confused, and I searched it up, and then I basically saw that I meant undecided. And I always say that I love the fact that it's called exploratory and not undecided, because heavy on the fact that you really get the chance to explore. You get the chance to, so I knew I wanted to be a business school, like I knew I wanted to be in the business school, but I knew it was marketing, but I wasn't like 100% sure it was marketing for me, so I like the fact that I got a year to figure it out. So I took accounting classes. I knew accounting was definitely not for me. I took finance, I took OIM, I took a marketing class, and it was just nice to be able to I didn't feel the pressure of having to say, oh, this is my major, this is, because I feel like when people hear your major, they're like, they sort of assume what you want to do, what you want to be, and I didn't know what I wanted to do after college. So it was nice to just get some time to figure it out. My parents were so happy that I got the time to figure it out, and I just really appreciated that. So I know, as everyone has mentioned, it is sort of scary going in as undecided or exploratory, but it really does help, especially when you're not like 1,000% sure what you want to do. So that was how. And after a year, I know it was marketing from the start, but I just like the fact that I got extra time to figure it out. And like from the second semester, at the end of the first semester, I was able to declare marketing, but I gave myself till the end of the year, and then I declared marketing. And I just sent an email saying I want to be a marketing major, and it's as easy as that. So.
Thank you. All right, now it's your turn. So what questions do you have for our panel? Yeah, the question was, how does it work if you are interested in computer science or engineering, but you're interested in exploring? So I can give a little bit of insight, and Kelly and Torrin, if there's anything because that's the benefit of advising. They know everything about the university. So if you're interested in engineering, you actually do list an engineering major on the application, but all engineers come into kind of a general engineering curriculum. And if you want to stick with the engineering major you choose, like let's say you choose biomedical engineering, you come in and take this general engineering curriculum, you have advising and support. If you want to continue with that, you just do so. But you also have the opportunity to switch within engineering. So they build it a little bit like that. But on the application, it's just not engineering. They want to have a sense of what you think you might want to do. For computer science, you do have to apply into computer science. There is the invitation-only exploratory track in the College of Computing and Computer Science and Informatics. But again, it's invitation only, so it's a smaller cohort that comes in. If you're in a non-computer science major and you want to switch to computer science, you can do that, but depending on the year, depending on the demand, depending on the performance in courses, you may or may not be competitive to do so. But Tora or Kelly, if you want to talk a little bit about students that you've worked with who have either done that, that might be helpful.
Yeah, I'll just add that even though I'm in the College of Social Behavioral Sciences, I work with exploratory track students that are interested in engineering, computer science, informatics, public health, and we work really close together to help students with that. So really what it comes down to for engineering and computer science and informatics is there are certain prerequisite courses that if you're interested in exploring those, you have to not only take those classes, but earn a minimum grade and then apply. I would say we have lots of success with students who make those minimum criteria. And then on the flip side, kind of like Mike said before, sometimes I'll sit down with a student and I'll show them the engineering requirements and they'll say, wait, I have to take calculus and physics? And I'll say, and they go, no, thank you. So it gives you a chance to kind of spend some time with your advisor really thinking the pros and cons of those majors. Not really a con, but how does it fit with your own strength, right? I talk to students sometimes, they're like, oh, I hate math, I don't want to take any math classes. How about computer science? Is that a good major for me? And it's like, probably not, right? So it's helping students kind of sort that out. I don't know if you'd add anything towards that. Okay.
Great question, thank you. Yeah, so the question was, you might want to do two majors, you're considering two, and one might be in humanities or fine arts, and one might be undeclared, and how does that work?
So one way that works is that when students are looking at majors and whatever their courses are, if you are going to double major, say, then you will have two advisors. So one of the things that we'll talk about in the advising session is what it means. So you may have a primary major, for example, in public health sciences, but you've decided that you also want to do a secondary major in psychology. So you will have a primary advisor in your primary major of public health in this example, and then you will also have an advisor over in the College of Social and Behavioral Sciences for psychology. And so really the conversations there are going to be about how you meld those two things, those two curricula together, so that each semester you're taking the correct sequence of courses that you need, so that when you get to the end of your term, you've got everything you need for both degrees.
And on the application, you list you list an intended major. You can list an alternative major, but the intended major should be at least one of, if there are two options in front of you, and we can help counsel you in that in admissions, but you should choose one of them. Start there. If you ever want to double major or have a minor field of study, you can pick that up once you're at UMass. It's not something the admissions office necessarily needs to know. You're applying to one area, be it an ET track or a major, and then you add a double major or you add a minor or minor fields of study, just like our students have indicated once they're here. So So just wanted that to be clear too, if you're kind of between two options.
And probably the one thing that I want to say, just to add into that, is that part of the job for us as exploratory track advisors really is to get to know the student. So it's really in those conversations as we get to know you and what you're interested in, that we figure out, are there multiple disciplines that you might be thinking about? Might you be thinking about a pre-health or a pre-med track to go with this? So perhaps I want to be this major, and then I also want to be looking at med school options. I want to have that possibility. Or other graduate programs. So that exploratory track relationship with the advisor is really an important one. And as we get to know you and what your interests are, we really do work to tailor your experience and the courses that you're choosing so that we take you down that path so that you can move towards the places where you are most interested in going. And we're just helping to guide along the way to make sure that you know all of the pieces that are happening each step along the way.
The question was, do advisors follow or work with the same student all 4 years, and how often do you meet with students?
So the Exploratory Track program at UMass is an interesting one. We have, so students in the Exploratory Track have up to 3 semesters where they're able to explore curricula before the university says, okay, now we really do need you to declare. Because we do understand that there is a time constraint, right? And people are really trying to graduate within 4 years. So as an Exploratory Track advisor, my relationship with the student it can go up to 3 semesters, but that's really the time limit. I would say that about a third of my students who come in as exploratory track really do have an idea of what they want to do. They just kind of need to get their feet wet on the ground first and just make sure it's okay before they formally declare in that second semester. And then others may just be, depending on what they're interested in, especially if they're interested in one of the engineering or one of the, or the computer science, the programs where you have a number of prerequisites that you need to take in advance. So those students may stick a little bit longer. Then ultimately, our relationship with them ends and they move on to their majors and to the advising teams of those people to help them move towards graduation.
Yeah, and I'll just add that how often you meet with your advisor, it probably varies college to college a little bit, but in my college, it's minimum of once a semester. But I will tell you, like, take advantage of your advising team. I have students that come and meet with me like once a month because they just want to check in and run by the ideas. And then a few people have mentioned first year seminars. I also teach a first year seminar class where I have a group of ET students and I meet with them weekly. So I bet you all meet with your advisors a decent amount, right? It's helpful. Dave, you told them to say that.
Yeah, it is helpful.
Other questions? The question was, is it possible to apply to more than one school at UMass? And the answer is, on the application you have the intended major and an alternative major. Those 2 majors could be in different schools or colleges. What basically on the list of majors, it's alphabetical, and the school or college isn't listed there. It's in our brochures, it's on our website, but so you can choose 2 majors that happen to be in the same college. They could be in different colleges. We will consider you for your intended major, that's required. The alternative major, we may consider you for that. So you have the chance on the application to list 2, you'll enter into 1, and then once you're here, you could double major. As I think Torrin was talking about this kind of, you could, and the students are all doing it too, you can double major in different schools or colleges at UMass, or your minor field of study could be in a different school or college than where your major is. Does that get it? Yeah, the question was, like if you apply to the Eisenberg School of Management, which is a little more competitive as your intended major and you're not admitted, will we admit you to a second choice major? What would that look like? In most cases, we rarely will admit a student to their second choice major, and part of that's, in that instance, is because in the past when we've admitted students who put an Eisenberg major as their first choice and something else as their second choice, they've gotten here and almost every single student wants to switch to Eisenberg. And Eisenberg was down to taking only 2% of students that wanted to get in, so that's why they limited it. And so rarely will we admit a student. And so in that case, you can talk to us about the admit rate and the possibility. It may be worth considering an alternative path as your intended major, depending on your competitiveness for a selective major like one of the Eisenberg options or a few others. So definitely a good conversation to have with admissions, and we can share a little more insight on that offline, absolutely. Yeah, the question was the application review process. If we could talk a little bit more about what we're considering for students. There's a session today on admissions insights that you can do that. And I will put a plug, if you go on a campus tour, your campus tour guides have some great insight about admissions as well. So happy to answer questions offline as well, but for this session, just want to make sure we focus on that. But a great question, plenty of chances today to get that answered. Yep.
So just as a follow-up to that gentleman's question and that thread, if you're undecided, how is it possible to explore the business school management? You're not sure if it's marketing or accounting, or maybe you don't want to do business, you want to study building construction technology, something unrelated, in a different college. How are you able to explore that in that first semester?
Yeah, the question was, if you're interested in some of the Eisenberg School of Management majors, how are you able to explore that? On the application, there is a business major that you can apply into that is essentially the option where you come into Eisenberg and then you can move into any of the Eisenberg majors. As Io mentioned, there's the option to be offered the business exploratory track as a first-year student and you can explore, but as an applicant, your only kind of option to come into Eisenberg and explore would be to self-select the business option on the application, and then you could explore, or to be offered the business exploratory track. And so that's something where, that's the decision Eisenberg has made. Great question to ask them at the resource fair. If you have more that you'd like to hear from them, I'm not sure if you want to share anything kind of about exploring in Eisenberg.
So I understand your question. So how it works is you meet with your advisor. So let's say, for example, I'm an exploratory track, but I want to have a class on fine arts. I want to take a dance class. I want to see if I'm interested in dance. So maybe I could be an Eisenberg exploratory track major, but let's say I don't want to be an Eisenberg. I realize I want to do something else. So you let your advisor know that, and they would select the classes that they think would fit best for you, and then you decide that you can add that to your schedule. So you are able to do classes outside of Eisenberg. You're not restricted to just Eisenberg, but we do want you to take some Eisenberg classes because at the end of the day, you are an Eisenberg exploratory track major, and we want you to explore Eisenberg, but you do have the ability to do classes outside of Eisenberg too.
And Mike, I'll just add very quickly that in the College of Social Behavioral Sciences exploratory track, we get a lot of students who are interested in business in general. We have an economics major, managerial economics, resource economics, journalism with a public relations concentration. So there are a lot of different ways to go into business. I think the big thing to remember though is if you don't start in Eisenberg, you're not going to end up in Eisenberg. But there are other ways to do business, and we work with a lot of students who are working at State Street, Fidelity, all these other big companies that aren't necessarily in Eisenberg, but they're doing business elsewhere.
I want to add one other piece to that, which is that a lot of exploratory track students who might be interested in business, and they understand that they can't transfer in, but they're also interested in the business-related field. This is what Kelly's saying, what makes such good sense, because what most students don't know is that the introductory courses that one would need to be in Eisenberg are macroeconomics, calculus, microeconomics. So it's the introductory curricula of the economics department that is actually the foundation for what students are doing. So a lot of students don't necessarily know the pathways that are available to them vis-a-vis the School of Social and Behavioral Sciences and the economics program that are just as robust as Eisenberg. But when you're dealing with a culture where you have such name recognition and everybody wants the shiny Eisenberg title over here, there's so many other pathways that you can get to the same kind of thing as your end result when you are out in the world that we can help students explore.
And then there's also a business minor through Eisenberg. A lot of students who are not Eisenberg majors may pursue, in addition with the majors you've heard highlighted, which position students very well for internships and then ultimately jobs in business fields. But I want to be mindful of time because we have a full day today. If you have any questions that we weren't able to answer, we'll stick around in the front here, so if you want to ask us one-on-one, feel free to do so. Enjoy fall visit days, enjoy UMass, and best of luck through your college search and ultimately where you choose to enroll. But enjoy the day, everyone. Thanks for coming to the session.